This program is brought to you by the Forbes-featured Freedom Hub Health Plan, the alternative to overpriced and restrictive insurance. The Freedom Hub Health Plan is exactly what you need. By Frequency Medicine Associates, supporting health professionals and laypersons with safe and effective advanced telemedicine-like technology that can scan and help rebalance the root causes of stress and illness. By the Planet Lockdown film, which can be seen on the Freedom Hub's Rumble channel along with many great speakers. And by The Pavilion, a 21st century community hub that brings together many of the disruptive innovations featured by the Freedom Hub, including direct pay healthcare, farm-to-table dining, TED-like Freedom Hub talks, and more. Visit your-mp.com/pavilion solution for details. Good afternoon and welcome to another episode of Health, Biz, and Politics Cash Market, Free Market Cash Patient. We've got, we actually lost our speaker today, but the good news is my surrogate, my clone, the other Jim Graypeck, actually, no, it's Jeff Kanter, will be filling in. So we'll get to that in a minute. A couple of quick housekeeping things. One, let me share a screen with you. I just wanted to show you that coming up in September, you can sign up for this, is the third annual Vaccine Safety Awareness Program. Looks pretty good. It's got all our favorite people on it. I put the link in the chat just so you guys are aware of it and you know, catch up on what the latest is going on with Robert Malone and Dr. McCullough, who we've had on as guests, and a few others. And now let me go to our website, just for those of you who are new or haven't seen what we have here. If I can find it, there we go. Is that showing up?
Yes.
We got the right one? Okay.
Yep.
So this is your marketplace for health, wealth, and freedom, your-mp.com, and some good stuff here. And if you go to the homepage, you can go to webinars, and you will see down here who we have coming each week, little bio on them on the topic. And you go down to the bottom, you can subscribe. Right now, there are 2 subscription buttons, one for the Health Biz, and then here, and then one on for the Thursday Zoom, which is more policy and freedom oriented. Sometimes we have the guests coming up afterwards. I don't think this isn't correct right now. I've got to change that. But down here are the links to our different channels, which we have. We post these on BitChute, Brighteon, YouTube, Rumble. YouTube right now has, again, kind of canceled us for another week or 2, but we'll have things back up. We can't always put things on there because, as you know, we get censored a lot. So let me stop that. Yeah, so we have today, our topic was about the new medical cost sharing. It is about medical cost sharing, these cost sharing plans. And with the ACA law ending at the end of the year, or certainly pieces of it changing, there's a lot of opportunities, a lot of new things coming up. If you didn't hear, our speaker had a last minute health emergency with his dad. So Jeff Kanter, the original Health Biz Politics Freedom Hub co-host, will be presenting this and going to the website. So let me turn that over to him. Unfortunately, or not fortunately, as I said, Jeff's picture is my picture today. So it will be, he'll just think of him as my clone. And Jeff, I'll take care of the bringing people in, and why don't you take it away?
Okay, sounds good. Switch over here my own self then. Share. Okay, you should be able to see it says try sharing at the top.
Yep.
Okay.
Good.
So, hi, everybody. Yes, I'm pinch hitting today. Unfortunately, Doug had to step away, but I've been very involved with this in two ways. So, not as like the owner manager like he is, but I'm part of the makeup of what's inside of it and some other things we're doing together. So, I intimately know what's going on here. But for a quick background, just to put everybody in context, we're talking about sharing, and it could either be called Christian Health Sharing Ministries or health sharing or medical cost sharing. It goes under a bunch of vernacular these days because since its inception, it's continued to grow. And now it's reached the point where it's non secular as well. It started out only as a religious oriented approach, but everybody said, why should it only be restricted to that? So other companies have arisen. So I'll give you a 2-second history of how we got to where we are today. So back when the Affordable Care Act came out, and often was called Obamacare, so it's pretty old already, believe it or not. At the same time that that act came out, there was a paragraph in there that said that there were exemptions or exempt people in relationship to the act. And it said if you're an Amish person or a Native American or any number of categories that virtually none of us would be in. Although one of them said, unless you're a member of a Christian health share ministry, and everybody else is like, what the heck is that? And lo and behold, health sharing is kind of the idea of we pool our resources. So if we're all going to go out eat to dinner and between all of us, we got $100 and we go somewhere that it's less than $100 to eat because we're, splitting the bill equally. And so that's kind of what the Amish have been doing in other societies that didn't quote unquote have insurance for their health. They had insurance for physical items like a car or a house, which is kind of tangible and finite, and it's a fixed thing that you have to replace, but your health is always a moving target. So to get insurance for it was kind of a mixed idea to begin with, but that's what we were saddled with, and the government and everybody said, hey, insurance is the way to go. And suddenly that became the de facto choice, when obviously there's many ways to do this. As they say, there's many ways to skin a cat. So in terms of the sharing organizations, these Christian ones started probably about 40 or 50 years ago, and they became real popular about 30 some years ago when they kind of became more national in scope. Instead of each individual large church having its own exclusive group, they started having these ones that worked nationally in scope. Like, let's say they were evangelical oriented. So all the evangelical churches would recommend this one health sharing plan, and they grew to be a kind of a national program. And that's why when the Affordable Care Act showed up, they had to carve out an exemption because there were a lot of people that were a part of this thing. Well, flash forward to today, and now there's like a multitude of companies competing on a national scope, and you may have heard or saw some, and we'll take a quick peek at a few just to kind of build more context for everybody. But it's reached a point though now where it needed its own organization behind it. Like there's the National Health Association, there's the Health Insurance Organization, there's the Motor Track Owners Association, but there was no association for health sharing companies because they were too fledgling and it wasn't a business, so to speak, until, hundreds of thousands till finally millions of people joined, and suddenly, whoa, there's a business here. So it needed its own voice in Washington, its own, nonprofit face. And then also, for a lot of people that are familiar with health insurance, since Affordable Care came out, you didn't just kind of figure out how to buy insurance. You would actually go to Healthcare.gov, and there was a central place to go where you punched in your age and this and that, and it would give you a recommendation of all the different health programs available in your zip code, so you could pick through all of them and you knew all that were available. You didn't only see 2 out of 10 because you didn't even know the other ones existed, because there's a lot of smaller players in a lot of these fields and they don't get the exposure that Blue Cross Blue Shield does, but they might have a better program in general, or even one that's just better for you. So the best thing is to be able to see everything, and then you can decide, which is what this show is all about. You want to know everything so you can make your own decisions. So what's happened, and let's kind of come kind of from the back to the front, let's say, but we wanted to first show that there's two things that are happening. So let's kick over. This is the association. So this is more for the industry people as it is for the consumer. This is not the consumer facing side per se. This is the site that represents all the different sharing companies that are out there. And this has been running since 2021, but it would kind of more becoming public of late because of the timeliness of it, working out the bugs, bringing a bunch of people on board to be, the sharing organizations participating, and there's still some to go. So it's a work in progress. But anyway, this is the whole idea, is that it's representing all these organizations on a national basis. So it's supporting the industry, it's advancing it, and it's connecting it. Because as a good example, a lot of people think Ford and GM are competitors. Well, guess what they are? They're vying for the exact same person to buy their car over the other guy's car. So why in the world would they ever want to get together? But there is a manufacturers trade association because they've got common issues. They need electric bills to be reasonable. They all benefit by certain things going a certain way. So they need a face to the public and to government. And so that's what this represents. And you can come and take a look at this yourself, nhcsa.org. You can see it up on the screen up there. It's the acronym for the organization. And I don't want to spend too much time here because, again, this is an industry thing, but you can learn about it, see what the advocacy program is, how they're working on the grassroots. Because again, all these members, it's a little different too. One thing about sharing, when I have insurance, it's a shifting of responsibility. So when I buy homeowners insurance from Allstate and something bad happens to my house, I'm not responsible. Allstate is. They took on the risk of my house, and I pay them for that. So they're gambling that nothing's going to happen bad, and I'm hoping that if something bad happens, I don't have to pay much, a little deductible, and I'm clear. But with sharing, every member is in it together because we're all putting our money in that same pot to pay for dinner, which means we all got a vested interest in everything working just right, because kind of we're owners more directly than ever in terms of taking care of your health care. So the grassroots is an important part of what we're doing in terms of banding all the members of these various health organizations together to be one massive group instead of a bunch of individual little pools. And then how we're going to help them grow. And then, of course, how we're going to work with the press and represent the business, because in certain ways, this has become a thorn at first in the side of the status quo, and then ultimately became a true threat. And the difference is that insurance, because it's a kind of a regulated industry, is managed and controlled by the departments of insurance in all 50 states. So that's why there is no uniformity. Why, when you have to get your Medicare plan, you see those ads on TV, you always have to put in your zip code because everything is sensitive to physically where you live. Well, with health sharing, it doesn't matter. It's nationwide, anywhere you travel. Or I can own a company that's based in Tennessee, but I live in California. It doesn't matter. The program is a universally more consumer. Hey, I want to go here this week. I want to go there next week. I'm not locked into a PPO network or an HMO network or someplace where I can't escape. So I have a lot more decisions here. But by the same token, because this is not a shifting of risk, that we're collectively as a membership taking on the risk ourselves, amidst ourselves, that we're not regulated by the Department of Insurance. So we get to operate far differently. And I'm just using we euphemistically because it's for the whole industry at large. But as a consequence, though, and this holds true for virtually everybody that's a participant as far as these companies that sell to consumers, they're about half the price of Blue Cross. And so to save that kind of money, I mean, people trying to clip coupons to save like $1 on gas, and that doesn't mean much in the scope of a whole year. But if I can save somebody $500, $1,000 a month, now we're talking some real chump change. So that's why this is wicked important. So now let's just get into the meat and potatoes of it. So trysharing.org is the public face. So that's where the consumer would compete with Healthcare.gov. Let's take a fast detour. I didn't have this prepared, so I apologize. But this is for me looking for health insurance. I go to this website, Healthcare.gov, and then I type in all my particulars, my age and my family or whatever's going on with me, and then it'll give me all the details. This is only open during open enrollment. See you right now, see if you can enroll. Well, I can't enroll right now because it's not open enrollment. So I got to have a special enrollment period due to a life change. Went on to Medicaid. So you can't do anything till open enrollment, which is in November through the end of the year. And then January 1, you get a new plan and it's locked in for a year. Well, with health sharing, because it's year round, I can buy a plan whenever I want, and I can drop one and go to another one from 1 month to the other if I want. It's totally an open market, which is what's great about it too. And you can go to any doctor, and it's organized in the framework of cash going to the doctor, because in insurance, they have to not get money from you. They collect from the insurance company and they might have to wait and they don't get paid what they wanted to get paid, and a whole bunch of other stuff that could happen to them, or they get less than they thought. And meanwhile, you don't know because you're paying a monthly premium and a copay maybe, and you have no idea what happens to that doctor. But in the sharing world, you see all of the costs of everything in advance of going to do any of it. And it's all preset. So either some of it might be part that you're doing and you'll see because you potentially owe some money to, just similar to health insurance. You pay the first so many dollars, and then after that dollar amount, then everything else is paid for 100%. So it's real clean that way, and doctors love it because for all intents and purposes, when you see them, they're getting paid cash, whether it's personally coming out of your pocket or only a little out of your pocket and the rest coming elsewhere. But they get it 1, 2, 3, and they already told you what they're going to get paid. So they don't have to worry about getting shortchanged or having to pay 2 people in the front office to try to collect the $40 from Blue Cross. They lost money on that deal. So let's take a quick detour because this is the consumer side. So here's the hard hitting part of this. So again, you want to learn a little more why this might be right for you. It's explaining, as I said, it's an alternative, but you're getting world-class healthcare because, again, instead of being like, I'm in Cleveland, Ohio, well, there's 2 major health plans, Blue Cross and Medical Mutual. They're like the 2 top dogs in town. Well, guess what? There's the Cleveland Clinic and there's University Hospital Systems. And if you have one insurance, you can only go to one of those hospital chains, not the other, and vice versa. Well, if I had the health sharing, I can go to either. I decide. I'm never locked into anything. So it gives you the chance to get to the best of the best in whatever market or place you are, and not have to try to buy, like a lot of people buy drug plans based on their most expensive medication. But then their second most expensive medication might not be in that plan that they just bought. So they're not even getting total freedom. They're like buying like the best of the worst type of a situation. And why should you have that happen to you? So this is why this might be a great alternative. Gives a nice little explanation about how much you can save and what it represents. And then this is a big part here too. This is really very big. And this is becoming more available in other ways as well, but it's breaking ground here in this health sharing world. This is the idea of getting all your medications for free. So instead of having to buy a drug program, especially like if we're talking Medicare, because they're all embedded in your health insurance, so you don't realize how you're paying for medication anyway. But if I'm a senior, I buy a Part D drug card where I very visibly see I'm paying so much a month for this program. I have a specific deductible. So I got to buy all the medications, which supposedly they get me a special price, but very often, interestingly, GoodRx is cheaper than the price I'm working off of with my United Healthcare drug plan. But I got to pay a copay. So they get it down to a price, and then I'm only paying a copay of that. And then I finally spend enough of that. And then I hit a donut hole if I'm taking a bunch of medications. And then I got to pay a bunch of money my own self again. And then once I cross that chasm, then the insurance company comes in and pays drugs for the rest of the year, basically. So it's really a mess. Well, as it turns out, 95%, or you can bicker about how much of the drugs people take, are generic. And that's about most everybody out there is taking these generic drugs. That's the bulk of their medication buy. And then they may have one like name brand or expensive drug. So here for a fee, and there's like $19.95 a month. I think that's for the single, and a little different price for the family. You can get all those drugs for free, a 60-day, 90-day supply sent to your house, no charge, and all the drugs on the list are free. So it's a remarkable situation what's going on. So they're always looking. Why? Because see, the members in the driver's seat. So that everything that they're doing, anything that's coming forward, you're the one with the vested interest, not the shareholders, not all these other people that really don't care about you. They're just trying to figure out, you're the way they make money. So you're like their tool to an end of making money, like all these insurance companies, because they've got these big buildings to support and brochures to print and company meetings to take and big conventions to hold. And, you're footing the bill for all that stuff. And they're working lockstep. So it's like what we've seen happen with colleges. When you're willing to give more money to pay for college loans, son of a gun, the tuition at the college went up to match. And every time they raise how much they're willing to give, they raise the tuition. So the same thing's happening with health insurance and with hospital costs and drug costs. They all kind of move together because, why not? They're the only game in town in their mind. But now there's a new kid on the block. So this shows you all of what's happening. And this, again, is exclusive of the Sharing Association. So this is where this is a lead generator, just like that Medicare.gov is, because a lot of people like AARP or others get, when you click on Healthcare.gov, you're not buying from the government. Some local insurance agent, because again, they're all state driven. You type in your zip code and, Jim Graypeck, who's the sales guy in New Jersey, calls you up because you live in New Jersey and you made an inquiry at the healthcare.gov website. And that's the person who sells you. And then they make money on that by selling you. But the government site was the aggregator. They were ideally not playing favorites. They just exposed you to everything that was in the market. And so the same thing holds here. So again, a little bit about sharing. And this is a nice little breakout again, too, explains how it works. And as I said, you pay in a monthly amount, you go to any doctor facility, you present your card, and then the discounts are applied or it processes the payment, in other words. So it's real clean and simple for you. Explains again how it works a little bit. Here's where your chance to find out more. So here's where you want to do that comparison stuff. So here you can fill out the form. So any of those buttons, it all takes you to this page here, which then has you fill in the information. Now, again, number of kids and whatever. So it's trying to determine where you are, because not every sharing organization works in every state. Just like in health insurance, Aetna is not in every state. Humana is not in every state. They may be in 20 states or whatever. So they're in a lot of them, but they're not in all of them. So again, you want to put in all your information. You'll notice association groups and codes. So this is, we'll shift gears for a minute because I'll show you kind of how this is whole broadening out and why this become much more of an industry. So there's other organizations. Now, this is going to be a neat one. We're going to want to talk about, Jim, on one of our forthcoming Freedom Hub ones, because this is a financial situation. This is a special card where it functions, and I have to learn a little more myself. This is so new. And again, this is our guest today would have been able to elaborate on this, but you'll see Try Sharing is in here. But this is a financial program with, now this happens to be the wellness side, because this Transact card is actually a different main core part. I'm just showing this because we're a participant in the wellness side of it. But this card is a buying card where you get money from a whole variety of things that you engage in, where you earn these Z bucks, and then you get to use them in a variety of other ways to pay for services and so on. It's a very cutting edge concept. So we got a chance to be a part of this in a big way. But again, you'll see here, they're pushing some of these things again. Here's your Medicare Connection thing. So that's a program for seniors, obviously. Here's that drug program. So they're offering that independently on their own. And here's that card of theirs, which is an interesting thing. And that's where they get a chance to get into all the wellness stuff. And then you'll see in here where we've got the sharing plans built in back over here. So these are some basic ones, and then all the rest of this. So this is growing all over the place in a very big way. So let's see what I mean by that. Well, here's a good example. This is, let me cut to the home page here. This is the Independent Route Drivers Association of America. So all the Lyft drivers, Uber drivers, Amazon drivers, anyone you see those dandy Snap-on tool trucks, any of those delivery people making chip runs to all the different 7-Eleven stores and stuff, they own that truck. That truck is their business. And what they basically do is they fill it up in the morning and they come back, and whatever's missing, they fill in the, what happened there? Am I okay? Can you hear me all right? Said I got muted somehow. Am I muted or no?
No, you're good.
Okay, sorry about that. I said weird signal came in. So whatever they refill the truck represents what they sold for the day, and then they pay them on that stuff, and that's the profit. But out of those profits, they got to pay for insurance and and health insurance and everything else. So this is the association that those people join to get updates, and someone representing route drivers in Washington and protecting their business so they don't get overly taxed or whatever's going to happen to them. But concurrently, they need things to function in their business. So this organization offers them access to special pricing on auto insurance and all the things related to their business. And where I come into this program is being engaged with the Association Health Partners. So that's why I'm pinch hitting today. And I'm the COO with this organization. And this does, and I'm not the only person engaged in the nuts and bolts of what gets done, but this is for organizations that are trade associations, of which there's many that this is a part of. This is the Route Drivers Association, as I just showed you, the home appraisers, the traditional burials, which is for funeral homes. So there's a lot of different kind of people that all have the same problem. I got to buy toner for my printer, and I got to get health insurance. So they all have the same problem regardless of what field that they're engaged in. And so in this wellness thing, here's as an example, this breaks out all of what they get to have. So they got goals to give them the more economical way to operate their business and be more successful. So this takes them through all the various options that are out there. So here again, this is a backdoor way to show them sharing as a potential option. But the differences too that you'll see. So here's this health and wellness, medical cannabis, which is becoming very big, fitness programs for people over 65. This is for the health matching account. This is a good example, which is a cutting edge program that we're well versed in. CBD, affordable pricing for back office, all that back office activity that they require. Clear day at home. So this is a way to keep your loved people at home. So it's like a visiting angel situation. And here's normal insurance like Blue Cross, because the sharing is as cool as it is, isn't for everybody. There's certain things that it doesn't do that might not be appealing to that person or help them, so they have to avoid it. So the Associated Health Partners does a variety of things. Just as a real quick look see, this is the full shopping list here. So here's health sharing at the top of the list, but all these other services are brought to any major company or organization that wants to have a variety of services. So they don't have to be involved, that they are able to outsource all this activity. And you can see it's a lot, but this has been around for a long time. Well, before I became involved in this company, this has been out there kicking it. And there's an example within our organization, we actually have probably one of the best sharing programs there is. And you're certainly going to want to take a look at that as well. So if you come into the marketplace that Jim showed earlier, the your-mp.com, and you click on Founders Marketplace, you'll see this is the health plan that we're promoting because it's been recommended by Forbes. And this one, in many ways, is the most superior. Hate to kind of toot our own horn here, but of all these other ones that are inside that try sharing, this is one of the best because it has a lot of added features. The rest are very competitive with each other, but they have the same similar approach where they handle all the bad things. What this program does is it handles all the everyday things. I should be losing weight. I should be working on my diet. I just need to get some consultation. Oh, I'm having a little life crisis. I need a little telemedicine. So it brings all of the, what I would say, the what ifs and the what I will be's. So the what is, what if I have a heart attack and what have you, but then the what I will be is what's going to I'm definitely going to do. I'm going to get my teeth cleaned, right? So I want to make sure I'm covering everything. So that's why this is great. And you'll come and take a look at it when you click over through there. It takes you here. But
Hey,
let's take
Jeff,
a,
let
yeah,
me
go
just
ahead.
jump in. Is that
Sure.
for companies as well as individuals?
Yes, it can be. And that's a great question, Jim, because I'm almost done. I'm going to take some questions. Not all these health sharing plans can be sold to companies. Some can. None of the religious ones can be bought by companies. They have to be owned by an individual person. So again, those route drivers, there's one person owns that truck, them and their whole family. They basically own the truck. So that being the case, they can buy it themselves directly. But if I'm a company tool and die shop with a bunch of people working here, I can't buy that type of a program for them. They have to buy that on their own. I can give them some extra money maybe in their paycheck, but I can't buy it. Others, which are non-religious, they do have the ability to be bought by a company owner for the employees. And so there is a lot of interest in that market space. And right now that's only small businesses, none over probably about 15, 20 employees would ever typically take a look at it. And once you hit 50 or more, that's the government cutoff. The minute I get to 50 employees, I have to start providing normal health insurance to all my workers. So that's why there's a ton of 49 employee companies. I don't want to
Is
hit
that
the
gonna
magic number of 50 and suddenly fall under all these government constraints.
is that gonna change at the end of the year or no?
No, that's a kind of a, they figured out it's too expensive to administer a plan with less than 50 people on it. So that's why if you're, especially most businesses aren't 49, they're really like half a dozen to a dozen people tops. That's most small businesses in America. So they could never afford to administer a health insurance plan for their employees. So that's why they don't ever offer it. And that's where they always feel like they lose out against get somebody taking a job up the street because they offered health insurance. So this gives them a way to be able to offer benefits as and buy it economically. And in fact, it's better for the employee. They're going to love it a lot better than them working at Walmart, getting that corporate plan that's kind of mediocre at best. But real quick, here's like a newer player in the field, Joppa. This is a big one with a lot of major people behind it because this is becoming much more of an industry now. This is one of the industry leaders, MetaShare. They run ads all the time, but look, they have over 400,000 members. They push $50 million a month in medical bills, and they have a 98% rating from the customer surveys. When are you going to see Blue Cross or Blue Shield or any of those companies get 98% satisfaction? And look at the difference. No
Wow.
bill too large. They spent more than $4 billion since 93. So they've been around a long time already, these guys. Bills paid in 30 days, technology, all this stuff. One deductible for the whole family with no individual or per incident deductibles. So there's all sorts of stuff. And then here's another biggie, which is the Samaritans. But look at some of these prices. And what's also interesting too, these prices don't go up from year to year. They may stay the same for 3-4 years at a crack. And so lastly, this is that drug program. And this is, if you click through from that route drivers, you'd see what's in here. And it's a fantastic program. This is the largest drug organization in the country, and you'll see who they're tied to. What's interesting and where this came from, for a quick diversion, this is an Ohio-based company. They were the first ones to do the discount drug cards. So you may remember years ago when somebody would give you a drug card and you could get discount drugs before there were like drug cards with your health plan. And that had a bin number. So whenever the drug got fulfilled, whoever gave you that card got money. And that's what drove it. Well, that same company, flash forward today, right before this, is the platform that GoodRx and all those, every single drug thing on TV is running on this company's platform. And now they have a brick and mortar fulfillment operation to deliver every single generic drug in America and wickedly low prices on insulin and diabetic stuff. That's a part of that membership. So that's kind of what's happening a lot. As you can see, things are going to get real interesting, real fast as we keep moving forward. So on that note, I hate to run so long, but I thought it was worth taking advantage of the time and really tell you that all that's going on out there in the shadows, that no one has a clue this is all afoot.
Good work.
Thanks.
So what are there any, I'm just start off real quick, any downsides? And one I've seen, or I don't know if it's a downside, but people are, you need a concierge, or is it so complicated?
No, that's a super, you know what, the number one problem, other than it having certain health conditions it won't pay for.
Right.
And this is kind of universal. So if you like, it's a good example. If I sign up for Blue Cross during open enrollment and I have cancer, I can just sign up for Blue Cross. There's no like hurdle for me or hindrance. I just pay my monthly fee and off to the races I go.
Right.
But with health sharing, they have a look back on your health. So certain things you could join. I have a little high blood pressure or whatever. Okay, big whoop. But if you say, look, I just had a heart attack last week, they're like, sorry, you need to been, 2 years cured or whatever. Each one's a little different. And again, that's why you want to ultimately get your personalized information in there so they can match you up with the company that's even willing to take you in the first place. Because they may
Right.
come back and say, look, there's no one that fits the bill. You're sorry, you got to stick with health insurance. Because that's part of why the price is $500 a month cheaper. They just deliberately, if you get a heart attack and everything happened to you after you join, oh, that's a whole different ballgame. They're going to pay up to, millions of dollars for your bills.
Right.
But they just don't want to buy your expenses the day you show up. And that's where they're smarter.
All right, let's maybe you can let's open it up for questions.
Sure enough.
Well, actually, there was one. Let me see. So Cindy,
wait, one thing real fast.
Yeah.
So one other downside is that everyone sort of is, because it can go anywhere you want, or, everyone's accustomed to having a network. The first question invariably when they see these plans is, does my doctor take it? And then they call their doctor up and say, hey, I'm thinking of getting this MediShare. And the doctor goes, I never heard of it. We don't take it. But in fact, they do take it. Every doctor takes all these plans because these are cash driven and they're just going to end up paying the doctor in cash. But there's no like network, quote unquote network. So that's what this thing does that we've accomplished with this association, everything. It's all the doctors are participating in this one national association. So all you have to do is say, hey, I have the NH whatever, I forget the name that they're utilizing. And the doctor goes, oh yeah, we take that. We take Blue Cross and that type of thing. And then that solves that problem that everybody runs into.
got it.
That stops it from being sold, not from being used, from being sold. So go ahead. What was Cindy's question?
Cindy wanted to know if this will work with Medicare, I don't know why you'd want it, but let's say, would it work with Medicare and or other health? Could you add it on to other health plans?
With it does not work with Medicare. It cuts off just exactly the same way that health insurance does. If you have Blue Cross Blue Shield, the minute you turn 65, you have to go to Medicare, whether you want it or not.
Okay.
You gotta go. So
And how about,
this terminates too. All of these companies terminate at 65. Now you
and what
can't,
about
and you
under
can't,
65, other plans?
under 65, you don't want to add it and you can't add it because it's a duplicate. It's like having, a Geico and Allstate homeowners. I mean, you're going to just pick one or the other.
Got it.
So now, yes, may split. Excuse me. What sometimes happens, interestingly, let's say the husband works at whatever and they have health insurance and he gets a killer deal because he works there. But if he wants to add his wife and kids, he's got to pay like full retail price, which is like ridiculously high. So the wife and kids may be on one of these health sharing programs and only the husband remains on the
Right.
other plan. So that's
And
the only
what
way they
about
would mix.
just the last thing, and then we'll go to you, Ellen. We were talking about prescriptions earlier, and you're saying, wow, they got some great prescription deals. If you're on Medicare or another plan, you can't cancel their prescription then and go to this one.
You would keep this. Now that's one great question, that because that didn't exist before like the last few months. If I'm on this plan or whatever plan and I happen to have that free pharmacy program going, The minute I turn 65, I lose everything except that program because that's
Okay.
not tied or tethered to anything. It's just an embedded feature with these plans that are offering it. Not all of them have that. So I just kind of letting you see that that's not going to be available like in MediShare and some of these others, at least not yet. I'm going to
So,
guesstimate it's going to be everywhere, but but that's not age restricted. And you can keep
so,
that in
so
the Medicare.
people that are paying 40, 60 or more a month for their drug plan might want to just say, let me cancel that and go to this thing.
Yeah, because unless they're really like on a lot of like super name brand drugs, and if that's the case, they're not
Right.
going to be on health sharing anyway. Because if you're on a bunch of name drug drugs, you got problems that probably won't be acceptable to a health sharing program that you're
Yeah,
in the
yeah.
middle of. It's okay if you're diabetic and have some other kind of ongoing problem, but anything that's like a lot of major name brand drugs, that's probably a pretty bad problem.
So, yeah, because I'm just thinking, actually, my daughter got bumped off her health plan and she's type 1 diabetic. So
Well,
this
it's a
might
good
be,
example. This guy, and again, there's a list. If you go to that site, there's a list of every single drug that's covered on there, and it's pretty unbelievable. It's broken out by like antidepressant, and then it names every drug under that heading.
yeah,
Um,
thanks. Okay.
this guy, one guy's drugs was like $600 a month, but with this program, it's free. And that was with his best discounted price with health insurance because it was like a tier 1 drug, so they didn't cover those, and he was able to get it at a ridiculous price.
Okay. Alan,
Yes. My first question is there any dental coverage at all?
There are, but and the way dental works, take a 2-second diversion. It's not technically insurance. They always talk about dental insurance. It's really not. Insurance, I tell everybody, is I pay a little and they pay a lot. I pay a little monthly premium. My house burns down. They pay $500,000. But with dental, they have an annual cap. You got to have it for 12 months before they'll even do 1 crown. At most they'll pay for some cleaning. So we tell everybody those plans are typically $1 trading program. You give them money and they give it right back, and you never get more out of them than you gave them, type of thing. They're not really very good. So what's become more popular is the idea of a discounting dental program where these doctors all join this network, and then if you go, they've all agreed that a crown costs X, and then you pay cash. So these plans, the health and sharing plans, by saving you $500 a month or more, frees up the money to pay for those things, so you can try to not get jerked around with insurance and pay cash as you go. And then what we briefly touched on was that health matching account. That's a plan that gives you $2 for every $1 you put into it, and you can use that to do dental work. So if I can get that good cash discount, like normally be $200, but if I pay cash on that dental card I have, my discount card, it's $100, and then I use my health matching account, I actually only paid $50 for that $100 service. So
yeah, and
that's
just,
the idea of stacking benefits. That's where we help the consumer be real smart.
yeah, it does also, there is a waiting period for that health matching account,
Yes.
the HMA card. But once you hit that time, yeah, you're basically paying 50% on all your medical stuff, including dental, whatever, cosmetic surgery. Yeah.
What else were you going to ask, Alan?
Yeah, I was also going to ask if you have a corned beef you're in Cleveland. If you have a corned beef on rye at Jack's or Corky and Lenny's, are you still potentially eligible for one of these plans?
Not if the underwriter sees you eating it at the time you apply.
Or Sliman's, which is even worse.
All 3 of those guys are still in business too, amazingly.
Yeah, well, they're probably in all sorts of medication, but we just had great trip out there. No, thank you very much.
That's
And
good.
I'd like to connect with you on LinkedIn and learn more, Jeff.
Yeah,
Even
been
if you don't look like Jim's
glamour shot
friend.
that I have up there for him. No,
Yeah,
it's
exactly.
interesting for me, just to give you a little background on how I came into it. I've been selling health insurance for almost 40 years. So, I've been really versed in all of the stuff, and I've been licensed to do all the different companies and everything else. And then I come to this meeting this one day, right at the time that the Affordable Care Act is coming out. You have to come to this special meeting at my office in downtown Cleveland. You're going to find out something that's happening in healthcare. Like, oh, got to go to that. So I go down, there's like 5 people. And one of them is the guy who's the founder of Liberty Health Share. And he explains, and then for those that don't know, Liberty Ulster is another one of the big players out there, and they grew from that day, and they grew to a big, big company. And they're located 40 minutes from my house. And I'm thinking, how can I? And at that time, I was in the business 30 some years. I'm thinking, how can I be in this business this long and never heard of such a thing or this company? But until insurance went nuts, when the Affordable Care Act came out, the price of insurance suddenly went from, I hate it, but I can tolerate it, to just, when one guy called me and said, when it got bigger than my mortgage payment, I knew I was in big trouble. And so that created an incredible opportunity for these organizations to become national powerhouses. And that's kind of how I fell into it, totally by happenstance. But it turned out to be the most exciting thing I'd ever seen in all these years. But the greatest part about it, and everybody else can suddenly appreciate this from what we've been discussing, doctors love it more than all of us do, because they get paid cash and there's no one telling them how to be a doctor.
Yeah.
I go, they tell me I need this surgery or whatever the hell it is, and then we pay. And no one says, well, you know, we're not going to pay for that. You got to downgrade them to this, give them this test first. None of that. All goes away.
What if they need? What if they want a second opinion on something?
Oh, they prefer it. Some of these guys will actually waive your out of pocket if you're willing to get a second opinion, because they don't want you to not have it, but they just don't want to spend too much or do money on stuff that's not necessary, because then suddenly we got to raise how much we charge everybody a month. And so we're all trying to keep the price as low as possible, but not give up on quality. And, you know, and you might know, but a lot of people may not. When you say, oh, the Cleveland Clinic, yeah, and it's like $10,000, or it's a good example. They have an MRI, $2,500. Yeah, but I get the same MRI for $380 at this off-site imaging center. And then they send the results of the very same doctor that was going to read that $2,500 MRI. So price and quality don't go together at all in healthcare. It's the opposite. If it's wicked expensive, it's probably mediocre. And if it's super sharply priced, but with an incredible surgical center, whatever, it's way better than you'll ever get at that other place. So we help drive that, because one of the key things this has, and this is the most exciting part too, frankly, we didn't even talk about, every person in most all these organizations gets a concierge. So it's like having, you know, pardon the sexism of it maybe, but like having a Gal Friday. I don't have to do anything. I just say, hey, I need to get an MRI. And they figure out of every place I could possibly go, which is the best place for me at the most ridiculously low price without giving up one bit of quality. And all I have to do is show up. It's fantastic.
Do they use any medical tourism? In some cases, you can get great service.
I and our organization and our website, and we're tied to a bunch of these medical tourism places, and there's some phenomenal ones, especially in Mexico now, of all places. But most of these won't. They will let you go anywhere you want to go as long as it's inside the US.
Of course, if they go to Cleveland to get a heart procedure at the Cleveland Clinic or whatever, that in a sense is domestic medical tourism, not international.
Yes, we do that. As a perfect example, there's a surgical center of Oklahoma, which is about 1/10 of the price of the clinic on surgical procedures. And so they can put you up in a hotel, feed you, have your family actually go see a show or something for like way less than going to the Cleveland Clinic. So we definitely would recommend that if we were your concierge, you know, obviously you'd have to be willing to travel and say, no, I can't do that. I got to go to the Cleveland Clinic. Okay, so be it. I mean, we're not going to like prevent you from getting the care or spending money if need be. But if we're all in agreement that, hey, wouldn't you like to get the best service possible, but do it for half the price? Oh, and by the way, we'll waive your $1,000 or whatever out of pocket you were supposed to pay. Oh, okay, I'll do it. So, you know, a lot of people prefer it, and it's a winner for everybody if they do. Plus, what we're doing is we're patronizing very deliberate cash-oriented organizations, because if we want to get rid of health insurance, which, you know, something that's been the lifeblood for me, but I'm eager to kill it off, then we need to go to the doctors that support us doing the way we want to pay for our medical bills. And lo and behold, guess what? The best doctors, those are the ones that retire from the clinic and go back to private practice, become cash only doctors. So the best doctors are the ones that go back to private practice, and all the ones that are, you know, like the old saying goes, if you're first in your class at medical school or you're 200th, both of you get to be called doctor. So guess what? The one at 200th is the one that's your doctor at the clinic. And that private practice doctor who's half the price, cash, but they're cash only, they're the graduate in the top 5% of their class.
Yeah, all the hospital systems, the pricing, no transparency, we have that, we were talking about that the other day. It's a real problem. Those are the places to avoid. So this is a great opportunity for people, and companies, I think, to sign on where you can and really get some value and better care.
The funny story.
I've got a quick
Oh,
question.
please, Janice.
Yeah,
Go
Jan.
ahead.
I love this model, and I've been on and off your this whole experience for a couple of years, and I'm really grateful I'm still on your email list because I too am a fan of getting rid of health insurance. We're going about it a little differently. The company I have now is we're creating a budget for people, and our view is if people know what healthcare expenses are going to have, then they can budget for them, and they can either, if they know they have a lot of healthcare expenses coming up, then we're like, well, why don't you do them all at once? Go get on insurance, get it paid for, and then come off. And I know that may not be what the system wants, but who cares?
Right.
So I love these models. My biggest concern about them, and nothing is perfect, right? So I totally understand everything you described. But I do think that there's a bit of a bait and switch when there's this idea that I can go anywhere I want. Because when there is a navigator or the Gal Friday, whatever, that the coordinator, they're going to direct you to the low cost place. And what I always say about doctors is that somebody got a C in medical school. And I don't want to go to that person. And so even though that person may be cheaper, how does this whole cost sharing?
Yeah, that's critical.
Evolve,
Yeah,
right?
that's critical. Yeah, no, that's a real critical part for sure, because that is the concern or fear. And that's really where this model really excels, because it only goes with the top doctor. But the ones, and it compares like everybody, like I said, it does show you like every MRI place in town.
No, I get that. I mean, how do they do the
or
pricing?
doctor that would be, but these organizations, they have a way to rank the doctors on a whole variety of metrics. And so you're going to get the top doctor. And then that way you make sure you're doing what you said. I want to get the best doctor possible, but I want the best doctor at the best price. And again, and a big difference too. Let's say there's a top doctor at the Cleveland Clinic. You want to make sure that's the one doing your surgery, not the other doctor working at the Cleveland, because I know they're number one in heart, but it's not because of Joe Blow. It's because of Sally. What's her face? She's the reason they're. So I need Sally doing the surgery. Don't assign me a doctor by rotation. So that is a big part of what this all does. Is it gives you the power to know, just to solve the conundrum that you're describing.
But it is routed. I mean, because
no, not at all. They don't do any of that. You decide where we go. They
what
only
if
come
I do
to
want to go to Cleveland? Like, this is why I bring it up. So I had a knee problem and I haven't had insurance for 4 years. So, we're all in the same boat here, going out and asking for cash prices. And I've got this orthopedist, and he's the guy. He is the lower extremity sports guy in town. And, I had to sign this waiver that said that the deal he cut with Blue Cross was that he couldn't charge a cash price lower than what they were going to, than what his deal was with them. So the insurers are trying to box doctors out of taking lower cash prices by forcing them into these contracts that force them to charge crappy cash prices to someone like us.
Right. Well,
if I'm a ministry, I cannot, it's just something to be aware of.
Oh yeah. Well, here's what's been happening, because I know that issue too, for sure. Because that's them. One, it's not legal for them to do that. So the doctors really are able to go around that, frankly. But what really the interesting part about it is the bulk of the time that's related to where they're doing the surgery. So you oftentimes get that same surgeon to not do the surgery at the clinic, but to do it at a surgical center.
I get that.
That's in town here. And then they'll do it at a cash price. So it's still got some shaking out to go, because of course,
now
suddenly we're like a threat.
Right.
Like you're discovering and
Good.
describe. Yeah, which is good. That's how the old saying, now you know you're over the target because suddenly they're paying attention to us. But that's a great part of what's going to happen. But the care part is the critical thing, because again, if I'm your helper, like it's like you have almost to look like a stockbroker, especially the fiduciary one, where I only make money if I make you money. I don't just make commission because we bought and sold crap and it went down and who cares because I made money anyway because we sold it or bought it or whatever. Meanwhile, you lost money as the client. But if I'm fiduciary, I can only make money on the gain that I make for you. And so the same mentality, the way these organizations operate, they, like anything, I want you to come back to my restaurant. So I got to be the best service and the best quality food, or you're not coming back ever again. So the same with these sharing companies, they don't want to just be cheaper. They need to be cheaper and better, because, you know, a lot of people assume if it's cheaper, it must be bad or something's wrong with it. And I used to run into that all the time at the beginning of this 5 years ago when they would say it's 50% of the price. They said, well, what do I have to go to a veterinarian? You know, I mean, literally everyone thought it was, I mean, how could it be half the price? Doesn't even make sense.
Yeah, no, I get why it's half the price. My final question or comment is
sure.
that in watching what's going on in the startup community, there are a lot of for-profit organizations doing this, which is totally ironic, right? Because then they're actually behaving like a health insurance company, because if they're collecting, you know, a premium from you, even if it's lower, well, they're already doing what you described before. They're carving out the high cost people. They're only taking the healthy people. And then they're a for-profit company. So, you know, the ministries have this notion of it's a not-for-profit on their side, which is legit, because when you do the business model, if the whole idea is to just collect enough money to pay for the group's costs and then maybe bank some for the emergencies, you know, if you're doing that as a for-profit, then you literally have to overcharge people. So it will be interesting to see, because this is such an awesome idea, how the market handles for-profit companies that do the cost sharing. And I know a couple of them.
What a great way to end the call today.
Yeah,
well, real quick, because this is a great summation to this. That's part of what the association functions to do. Is a good example with the Professional Home Appraisals Association. They were a fledgling operation, but they set up a set of credentials and standards that you had to be meeting, so that if I, as a consumer, took a appraiser off of that organization, I knew they met this quality rubric. And that's what this National Health Sharing Association is doing. So that's to ward off what you're talking about. That's part of the guidelines, is that they only are charging a nominal, reasonable, you know, markup on the administrative work, like you said, because I got to pay the people that do the work here, but we're not trying to buy a yacht with it or some big fancy building in downtown New York. So that's going to do a lot to weed it out. You know, it's an interesting weeding out process, but we're trying to build guardrails to have the best outcome and let everybody compete, but at least it's all within a high quality arena.
Hey, Jeff.
Go for it.
Thank you. I'm going to wrap up here. How can people, because actually I see someone right up, how can people reach you to answer some of these or get signed up with the program or something?
Yeah, because I'd like to talk to some people beyond, you know, into these various avenues, and especially like with
email, phone, what do you want to put?
Yeah, J Kanter, JK, you can put in this chat box if you would for me, but it's J Kanter, so JKANTER at yourfreedomhub.com, YOUR, yourfreedomhub.com. So J Kanter.
And I'll put that in the
yeah. And that's a good example when we post it. And just for the person interested about the budgeting, that's where the health matching account is really perfect. It allows people to build for like orthodontia work in a couple of years. Like Jim said, there's a little waiting window, but it's a perfect tool, and it's something you guys can bring to the market. So what about your wealth? If your money could actually talk to you, would you listen to it? Well, with the DNA Network Academy, your money actually can talk to you. And it's going to tell you just what it told this client. This family had over 24 debts, mortgages, car loans, the works. They were on track to take 20 years to pay it all off, and instead did it in 8.5. Plus, they did it without refinancing, making more money, or even changing their lifestyle. So find out for yourself with a free analysis that is completely confidential. No personal information, no social security numbers, no credit checks, none of that nonsense.
But what is exciting is that the outcome of that report you receive is a guaranteed outcome for you. To get that report, head on over to bit.ly/debt to wealth. You will arrive at this simple form. Fill it in as simple as lender number 1 and credit card number 2. What really matters is the accuracy of your numbers. You'll be able to see that if instead of 20 years or whatever your number is, that you may actually be out of debt and on your way to wealth in as little as 6.3 years like this client.